Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, where today I'm going to show you how I make this really calming, serene set of koi fish lily pond dice. This design does require the use of blanks, and it requires the use of decals or nail stickers unless you're a very talented miniature painter, in which case, congratulations. But whether you hand paint them or use decals, I still think the results will be gorgeous either way, so let's make some dice. I'm going to be starting in my blank molds here, and I already have some resin mixed from an earlier batch of dice I was doing. I'm just going to degas it really quickly, and then we can start coloring it. I started with a drop of Pixis's cobalt blue color, and then also added a drop of Pixis's ocean color, which is a little more of a green teal blue. I wanted to have a little bit of a light to dark gradient in this design, so I just started with those 2 drops of alcohol ink, gave them a nice good mix, and then poured a small layer into each of my dice molds, or dice blank molds. Then, to continue developing the gradient, I went ahead and darkened the resin with a little bit more alcohol ink. I did another drop of cobalt blue and another drop of ocean. I did these on the side so I could slowly add more as I wanted to, and ended up adding the entire drop of each, and then doing another layer in my blank molds of that darker color. Then, as usual, it is a little bit of rinse and repeat. I'm just continuing to darken up this resin with another drop of cobalt blue and another drop of ocean. I give my resin a mix, pour a little bit more into each of my blank molds here, darken up my resin one more time with another drop of cobalt and ocean, mix that in, but I'm not actually going to pour it into my molds quite yet. We're going to do one step with white ink beforehand. Here I have Pinata's Blanco Blanco, which is my white ink of preference, and I have a toothpick that I am dripping this ink onto so that I can control the amount of ink that I'm putting into my dice mold. Once I have a drop on the toothpick that I'm happy with, I will dip it pretty much all the way down to the bottom of my blank mold, and then give a little bit of a swirl while I pull the toothpick up. I repeat this process in each mold, and unlike most ink swirls that I do, this is going to act a little bit differently. White ink is heavy, so it tends to sink in resin, which means we're going to get a kind of peachy dripping ink effect with this swirl that we're doing. Once I've swirled the ink into each mold, I finish it off with this resin that we darkened earlier, just capping each of the molds until they're a little bit over full. Then I degassed the top of my molds, and because this mold was pretty old, I didn't want to put the cap on. So instead, I just scraped the excess resin away from the sides and left my molds a little bit over full and cured them without the cap. Once my blanks were cured, I then popped them out of the mold and took a little look at them, of course. I thought that they were super cute as they were, and hopefully you can see some of that kind of peachy dripping white effect I was talking about, so I gave them a quick cleanup and moved on to decals. I had already done a few dice by the time I started filming the decal process. You know, I had to figure the design out first, so that's what the finished design I was working with looked like, and we're going to put decals on these remaining blanks. I ultimately decided to combine 2 different sticker sheets that I have. So I'm using these really vibrant lily pad and flowers combined with this extra sheet of fish. After picking out the decals, it is just a matter of placement. I say just, this tends to be the longest part. The basics of this process for me with this design was that I wanted to start with the lily pads and flowers at kind of what I deemed the base of each die, and then building off of those, add the different fish in between so that you get kind of a natural flowing design. To be honest, there's not much else to say about decal placement. Everyone has their own preferences. Because these dice that I'm working with are my show-off design, where my numbers are offset, you might see me putting a lot of decals in the center of the die faces, which I would not be doing if I was working with dice that had their numbers in the center of the faces. But aside from little details like that, it is just peeling off the stickers, holding them around the dice until you find an area where you think it's going to look good, and then committing. Rather than trying to talk you through the whole process, I'll show a few minutes of me decorating this D20 and then just give you some music to listen to in the background for a bit. And as I finished up the decals, our design is complete and there are very few steps left in the process now. We need to cast our blanks in our dice molds, so we're going to pour some resin, give it a good mix of course. This time I can show you the footage. But once my resin is mixed, I go ahead and degas it with a heat gun. We're not going to be coloring it because we're just shelling blanks here, so I fill my dice molds about halfway to 2/3 of the way full with this clear resin. Then I do actually spend a little bit of time twisting all of the different blanks around, trying to find what angle or what side they would look the best at in the molds, but once I've made a decision, I just pop them into my molds. Once all of my blanks are in their dice mold, I do another quick degassing with my heat gun, just popping all of those surface bubbles, and then I put my caps on before putting the mold into the pressure pot for 24 hours. Then the next day I am able to get my mold out of the pressure pot and demold the dice for you. And as a pretty rare occasion, I was actually quite happy with my lighting here and the way the dice were showing up on camera, so I'll just go ahead and share some of this demolding footage with you and be back to sum things up at the end. So now that you have seen the dice demolded, let's go ahead and wrap things up here. I am so happy with how these dice turned out. I think that they are just gorgeous and serene. They really take me to walking along a lily pond and looking at the koi fish, and I love that. But all of that being said, this was the video I had for you today. I hope you liked it. If you did, maybe consider leaving a like on the video or subscribing to my channel if you would like to see more videos. I think I've been doing real well posting so far in the new year. Hopefully that consistency continues, and your support certainly helps with that. So as always, I hope that you enjoyed, I hope that you learned something, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye! See you later!